All right. Hello, everyone, and to everyone joining us virtually. I hope you are having a fantastic day. It's a beautiful day outside and a great start to the weekend. So, I am so thrilled. I'm the adult event coordinator, but I get to also work with the fantastic Beth Bacon on very special occasions to bring in children's events and authors and story times. So I'm thrilled to have gotten to work with you. Let me tell you a little bit about this book. It takes a lot of work to bring a panda cub into the world. They are born with delicate pink skin, they're unable to see, unable to walk, and even unable to go to the bathroom without help. It's so much work that only panda mamas can only take care of one cub at a time. So when Zoo Atlanta's beloved giant panda, Lun Lun, surprised everyone by having twins, the zoo staff had to pitch in. I will let you continue the story. Beth Bacon is an author for young readers. Her books, I Hate Reading and The Book No One Wants to Read, bring humor to the experiences of struggling readers. Her books, COVID-19 Helpers and Helping the World Get Well, COVID Vaccines, offer children a clear understanding of the global pandemic. Beth volunteers for Open Hearts, Big Dreams, an organization dedicated to improving literacy in Ethiopia, as well as Logic.baby, an organization that supports families with infants being cared for in neonatal intensive care units. And without further ado, would you all please help me in welcoming the incredible Beth. It's your birthday! Happy birthday!
Yeah, we have a birthday girl here.
Yay!
So thanks for coming, everybody. This is my book called The Panda Cub Swap. And it's a picture book, and it is a true story. So I'm going to take my mask off because I need to wear my glasses in order to read it, and I don't want my glasses to fog up too much. So without further ado, The Panda Cub Swap. I will read through it, and then afterwards, if you have any questions, I will answer them. How does this look, Shane?
Looks great.
Good? All right. The Panda Cub Swap. By me, Beth Bacon, and illustrated by Anne Belov. And these illustrations are just beautiful. This is a dedication page. And then I will begin. Can everybody see? You guys good? Lun Lun, the giant panda, was restless. She moved around her den more than usual, pacing and dragging straw into a pile. In the workroom nearby, Rebecca and Dang looked into the panda camp. They smiled. "She's building up her nest," said Rebecca. "Motherhood comes naturally to Lun Lun," said Dang. A newborn cub was on its way. A little while later, a tiny pink cub appeared on the panda camp. Rebecca, Dang, and the other zookeepers cheered. Then they gasped. A second tiny pink cub surprised them all. 2 cubs were always a possibility, but until this moment, no one knew for sure that Lun Lun was having twins. 2 brand new, squirming, wiggling cubs made the team at Zoo Atlanta very happy. It also made them very nervous. So, can you guys see 2 cubs on these pages? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Where do you see them? Do you want to come up and point to them? There's one there and one there. Yeah. They were nervous because caring for newborn pandas takes a lot of work. So much work that panda mamas cannot care for both cubs at once. Panda cubs are born without fur, so they need their mama's hugs to stay warm. Their eyes stay shut for almost 2 months, so they need their mama to see for them. Their legs cannot support them, so their mama must carry them everywhere. Panda cubs can't even go to the bathroom without help. Even though the twins were a big surprise, Rebecca and Dang were prepared. They had a plan to let each cub spend part of the day with Lun Lun and part of the day with them. But if they wanted their plan to work, Lun Lun had to think she only had one cub, at least until the cubs were old enough to walk. The team at Zoo Atlanta had to act fast. While Lun Lun huddled with the first cub, a keeper snuck into the den and quickly whisked the other away. The team would take good care of the cubs in the workroom. But the zoo workroom was not as cozy as Lun Lun's embrace. If the cub swap worked, the cubs would take turns snuggling in Lun Lun's fur, listening to her heartbeat and basking in her warmth. The zoo at Team Atlanta liked the plan, but would Lun Lun like it too? Back in her den, Lun Lun nuzzled and nursed and napped with the firstborn cub. To Lun Lun, motherhood came naturally. After about 3 hours of togetherness, Rebecca and Dang decided it was time to let the other cub be with her mama. The keepers reached for the first cub, but Lun Lun would not let her go. You guys see the little tiny cub right there?
Yes.
Yeah. The Panda Cub swap was not off to a good start. Then Dang had an idea. Lun Lun must be hungry, he said. Let's put something tasty at the far end of her den. Maybe she will put down the cub and come get some food. Rebecca stood across the den with some sweet sugarcane stalks. Lun Lun held tight to the cub. Rebecca shook the stalks. Maybe the movement would capture Lun Lun's attention. But instead of looking up, Lun Lun lowered her chin and snuggled the cub even closer. Next, Rebecca tapped the stalks together. Clack, clack, clack. The sugar canes made a short, sharp sound. Lun Lun lifted her head. She saw the treat. She gently placed the cub in her nest box and moved slowly toward the food. Lun Lun had been hungry indeed. After she devoured every last bit of sugar cane, she turned back to her nest box. A new cub was squirming in the straw. Lun Lun gazed down at the cub. Everyone wanted to know. Would she treat the second cub differently? Rebecca and Rebecca and Dang held their breath. Lun Lun lowered her head. She scanned the new cub from nose to tail. Finally, in one gentle motion, Lun Lun picked up the cub and held her tight. To Lun Lun, motherhood came naturally. After that, Rebecca, Dang, and the team at Zoo Atlanta swapped out the cubs every 3 or 4 hours. Sometimes while Lun Lun slept, the keepers let the cubs play together in the workroom. It's a tradition not to give baby pandas their names until they're 100 days old. So for now, everyone called the twins Cub A and Cub B. Both cubs made lots of noises, but Cub A was noisier. Both cubs loved to eat, but Cub B was heavier. Taking care of panda cubs was an around-the-clock job for both Lun Lun and the keepers. At night, after all the visitors left the zoo, the workroom stayed busy. It would be many months before the cubs were strong enough to walk. Only then could the keepers bring Mama and the babies together. For now, the keepers carried the cubs wherever they needed to go. Week by week, the cubs grew bigger. Their eyes blinked open and they explored their surroundings. Black and white fur filled in over their pink skin. You guys noticed that? It's a big difference, right? Word spread quickly about the twin cubs and their team of zookeeper helpers. People all over the world tuned in to the panda camp. The press reported on the foods the cubs ate, their funny squeaks and squawks, their changing lengths and weights. This is somebody measuring the head of one of the cubs. Everyone seemed to know about the panda swirl. Everyone except Lun Lun. 100 days after they were born, Cub A and Cub B got new names. Mei Lun and Mei Huan. In Chinese, the saying Mei Lun, Mei Huan means something indescribably beautiful and magnificent. On naming day, the cubs twisted, squirmed, and reached. They were big enough to bounce and roll and play, but they were not yet big enough to walk. Learning to walk is hard work for baby pandas. Very slowly, Mei Lun and Mei Huan would stand up, reach a paw forward, and then splat and flop. They would fall on their bellies. They would tumble and roll. Little by little, they would scoot across the floor. They were curious and determined. Then one day, Mei Huan climbed out of her nest box. Soon after, Mei Lun crawled out too. The cubs were finally strong enough to walk. The time had come to bring them together with their mama. Reporters flew to Zoo Atlanta from around the globe. Long lines of visitors strained for a peek through the windows. They all wanted to know what Lun Lun would do when she saw both of her cubs together. Would she be surprised or confused or angry? Or maybe she would love them both. Rebecca, Deng, and the team at Zoo Atlanta had already guessed the answer. To Lun Lun, motherhood came naturally. The end. And then if you have questions about what some of the things that happened in the book, there's a lot of info that grown-ups can read and tell you about. And there's a page to get more info if you want to look online about. There's lots of good info about pandas online.
I think we're gonna ask some questions.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? No?
Thomas, do you have any?
Do people get to meet the pandas? Like, did you get to meet the pandas?
I didn't get to meet the pandas, but they actually stayed. They were born in 2014, which is a long time ago now. And the pandas got to stay in Zoo Atlanta until I think they were 4 or 5, and then they were sent back to China. Because the pandas in the United States are all just borrowed from China. And so Lun Lun has been in at Zoo Atlanta for many, many years, and she gets to stay. But when she has cubs, after they're old enough to sort of, really be almost like teenager pandas, they get sent back to China, where pandas have their natural habitat.
Are they released in China or are they go at a zoo in China?
They're not released because once they're like born in a zoo and just like they have so much contact with the keepers, they can't really be in the wild. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Like a preserve?
Yes, like that.
Yeah, they have some preserve. And Anne, who's the illustrator, she actually got to go to China, and she went on tours of the panda habitats in China. And she just said that they were really fascinating.
Years ago, they had, I don't know when, it could have been last year or 10 years, 15 years ago, but there was a film at the Science Center,
Oh, an Omnimax
About-
film at the
yes.
Science Center.
I believe, about
Yeah.
the panda, the research.
Yeah, so you can see the giant pandas at Zoo Atlanta. And they call it Zoo Atlanta, not the Atlanta Zoo. And I don't know why. That's just how they do it. And there are also giant pandas in Washington, D.C. at the National Zoo. And I used to live in San Diego. And when I lived in San Diego, there were pandas there too. But they all went back to China. So there are no longer giant pandas in San Diego. And I think Memphis, one other zoo I think, has giant pandas.
How did you come across this story? Like, how did you fall in love with
So
them?
the question was like, how did I come about writing this story? I'm actually friends with Anne, who is the illustrator, and I love her illustration style. And Anne was really the person who taught me about pandas and brought me in as a panda aficionado. And we just wanted to work on a project together. So that's what we did. We worked on it together, which is not the usual way that picture books are done. Usually when you write a picture book, the writer writes the manuscript, and then after that's all done, the illustrator gets involved. But this was a small enough publisher that we were able to work on it together. And that was really a great experience.
Is the illustrator from St. Louis also?
No, she lives in Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and I did. This is a true story, and I did a lot of research online. They have a really good blog at the zoo in Atlanta, and they have a great panda camp. And you can go even now and watch the pandas 24/7 and just see what they're doing, and that's really fun. So I did a lot of research online, and I also worked with the people at Zoo Atlanta. And I sent them the manuscripts and they would give me comments because I wanted to make sure that it was all accurate. So that was a really helpful for them. So, and luckily, hopefully I got it all right. They did a couple of passes at it. So that was a really good cooperative project.
All right, Beth, do you have any questions?
No? Have you been to the zoo here in St. Louis?
Oh,
Yeah. And I think they have red pandas, right?
Mhm.
Here. They don't have giant pandas. It's a great zoo, isn't it?
I went to years ago, my husband and I took our two children, and when we were in Washington DC, we went to see them. It's the only reason I wanted to go, because St. Louis Zoo is so wonderful, but was to see the pandas, and that's when I found out that all zoos are free. We were used to a free zoo, so we're
St. Louis,
very
the
lucky.
cultural things here in St. Louis are just amazing.
They are. But they were amazing to see. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
All
All
right.
right, well, I'm gonna,
We have books available for sale at the desk if you want to get them signed. Beth will be happy to sign them. If you were watching online, thank you so much for coming today. Be sure to share the video if you enjoyed it as much as we did. And if you would like to order a signed copy, we have them available at left-bank.com. And I did share a direct link to get signed copies.
do you wanna wave to the camera?
Yay!
It's over where Shane is.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Say it again.